The wind came first, whistling over the plains like a warning passed from one lonely fence post to the next. Then the sky darkened, slow at first, like the day losing its nerve, and the horizon vanished in a smear of dust and smoke. Somewhere behind the storm, thunder cracked like cannon fire from a forgotten war. The earth, already dry as old bone, trembled under hooves that moved with quiet urgency. Silas Kane adjusted his hat and narrowed his eyes into the oncoming squall. His horse, a paint gelding named Milo, whickered uneasily. He patted the animal's neck, not gently but firmly, like a soldier checking the grip on his rifle. The land was wide, empty, cruel in ways only a man alone could understand. He'd seen it chew up settlers and soldiers alike, watched it bury dreams in dry creek beds and dust-blown graves. And still, they came. Hope was a hard thing to kill. The scent of smoke touched his nose before the sound reached his ears. Faint, maybe imagined. But Silas trusted his instincts the way a man trusts the feel of iron in his hand. He turned slightly, following it. The storm hadn't broken yet, but it would. And when it did, the land would split open like a secret finally told. He crested a low ridge and stopped cold. Below him, in the tall grass beside a gnarled cottonwood, a wagon lay tipped on its side, one wheel shattered. The canvas cover had torn away, flapping like a broken sail. Luggage spilled from the wreckage, blankets, a shattered lantern, a torn boot. A man lay sprawled nearby, his body bent at a wrong angle, blood pooled beneath him like ink spilled on parchment. But it wasn't the dead man that made Silas dismount. It was the cry. A sound not meant for a place like this. Thin, desperate. A baby's wail, carried ragged across the wind. He tied Milo to the tree and approached slowly, hand resting near his revolver. Caution was a habit, not fear. He'd walked into too many traps in his years to think tragedy didn't have teeth. As he drew closer, he saw her. A woman crouched beside the wagon, clutching a bundle wrapped in a threadbare quilt. Her dress was smeared with blood and prairie dust. Her hair, soaked in sweat, clung to her face like seaweed on driftwood. She looked up as he neared, eyes wild, face drawn. In one trembling hand, she held a broken rifle. The barrel was cracked, the stock splintered, but her grip on it was pure defiance. "Don't," she said, voice cracked, hoarse. "One more step." Silas stopped. He didn't reach for his gun, didn't speak, just raised one hand slowly, palm out. "I ain't here to hurt you." Her eyes flicked to the baby, then back to him. "They always say that." He lowered his hand. "Maybe, but I ain't they. And you look like you could use a fire before that storm tears this sky in half." She hesitated, jaw clenched. The baby cried again, more insistent now, louder. "He's hungry," she whispered. Silas nodded once. "I've got some jerky. Water too. Not baby milk, but it's something." Still, she didn't move. But the rifle lowered, ever so slightly. Silas took that as permission. He worked quick, built a fire just inside the crescent of the wagon, shielding it with broken boards and canvas. The storm was closing fast now. Thunder rolled across the plains, long and low. He handed her a canteen and a scrap of dried meat. She took the water, gave some to the child using a corner of cloth, then drank herself. Her hands shook. She didn't thank him, didn't speak again for a long time. Silas fed the fire, watching her out of the corner of his eye. The baby eventually quieted, soothed by warmth or exhaustion. "He yours?" he asked finally. She nodded. "Name?" She hesitated. "Eli." Silas gave a grunt of approval. "Strong name." "What's yours?" she asked. "Silas Kane." She blinked, then said, "You a lawman?" "No," he said flatly. "Outlaw?" "No," he repeated. She looked at him longer this time. "Then what are you?" He poked at the fire. "Survivor." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hiss of wind and crackling wood. After a while, she said, "My name's Clara. Clara Avery." He nodded, but said nothing. Names meant less out here. What mattered was who you were when things got bad. The dead man hadn't moved. Flies buzzed near his mouth. "Yours?" Silas asked. Clara followed his gaze, then shook her head. "He was my husband." "Was? He's dead, ain't he?" Silas didn't argue. What happened? He owed money, she said after a pause. To men who don't forget. Her voice hardened. We ran. He thought we could disappear out here. Guess he was wrong. She nodded once. He thought he could buy our freedom. Traded everything we had. But in the end, all they wanted was blood. You kill him? Silas asked, not accusing, just a question. No, she said, eyes distant. But I wanted to. The fire cracked. Lightning forked across the sky, white and terrible. Silas stood and walked over to the body. Searched it quickly. No weapon. Just an empty holster and a broken promise. Storm's gonna be on us soon, he said. This ain't the place to stay. Where else do we go? There's a cabin, he said. Old Trapper's place. Not far. Half-day ride. Clara looked at the baby, then at the sky. I can't ride. I've got one horse. We'll make do. You don't even know me. Silas shrugged. Don't need to. That baby didn't ask to be born into this mess. Clara's lip trembled, but she bit it hard. You don't have to help. Silas met her eyes. No, I don't. She didn't speak again after that. Just bundled Eli tighter and stood, swaying slightly on her feet. They left the dead man where he lay. There was no time for burial, no shovel, and no prayer strong enough to anchor a man like that. The ride was brutal. Clara clung behind him, one arm wrapped around his waist, the other cradling Eli close to her chest. The storm broke halfway through the journey. Rain like knives, wind like fists. The trail vanished beneath flood and muck. Milo pressed forward, slow and steady, ears flat, muscles straining. Silas didn't speak. Neither did Clara. Only the baby made sound, weak, fading cries that twisted something in Silas's gut he thought long dead. They reached the cabin near sundown. It was a crooked thing of logs and rusted tin, leaning like it was too tired to stand. But it had 4 walls and a roof, mostly, and a stone hearth that still remembered fire. Silas kicked the door open. Dust and mouse droppings greeted them. He checked the corners for snakes. Found none. Dropped the saddlebags near the hearth and started another fire. Clara collapsed onto a threadbare mattress in the corner, holding Eli like a lifeline. She looked ready to dissipate. You get some sleep, Silas said. I'll keep watch. She didn't reply. Just lay there, eyes half open, the firelight flickering in the hollows of her cheeks. Silas sat by the window, rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the trees. Night came fast. So did the cold. Rain slapped the roof in sheets. Outside, wolves howled, long, lonesome notes that didn't sound far enough away. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Because something in Clara's voice had unsettled him. Not just fear, but something deeper. A kind of exhaustion he recognized. He'd heard it before, in his own voice, years ago. After the war. After the fire. After he buried his wife and child beneath a tree he never visited again. Eli whimpered in his sleep. Clara stayed, muttering something incoherent. Silas stood and checked the fire. Added another log. The warmth swelled, pushed back the dark. He glanced at the door. Just past the frame, he thought he saw movement. A flicker. A shadow. He stepped outside, boots squelching in the mud. Wind tugged at his coat. He walked the perimeter slowly, eyes alert. Found nothing. But something wasn't right. Not wolves. Not the storm. Something colder. He turned back, ready to go in, and stopped. In the dirt, barely visible, was a boot print. Fresh. Not his. Too small. His fingers twitched toward his gun, but he held back. A sound behind him, creak of floorboards. He turned fast, gun half raised. Clara stood in the doorway, hair wild, face pale. What is it? She whispered. Silas lowered the gun. Nothing, he lied. Then he looked at Eli. The baby was quiet now, breath steady. Clara's voice cracked. You think they found us? Silas didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't know. But the wind had changed. And something about the night felt, watched. He closed the door, bolted it, and sat beside it with his rifle across his knees. Clara lay back down slowly. Eli stirred, let out a soft, gurgling sigh. And Silas, who had once sworn never to care again, realized with a quiet ache in his chest. He already did. The fire burned low by morning, its heat reduced to a dim orange glow under a bed of ash. Silas stirred first, eyes cracking open to a room still wrapped in half-dark. Rain had eased to a slow drizzle outside, tapping the roof like the ticking of a dying clock. The baby's soft breathing reached him first, then the shallow rise and fall of Clara's chest just beyond. He didn't move right away, just sat, back stiff against the cabin wall, rifle cradled in his arms like a sleeping child. Every hour of the night had etched itself into the ache in his bones, but it was the boot print outside that stayed lodged in his mind. Whoever had been watching hadn't made a move yet. But patience was a trait common to predators and men with grudges alike. Clara stirred as light crept through the cracks in the wood. She sat up slowly, one hand going instinctively to the baby at her side. Her eyes found Silas across the room and lingered there longer than necessary. "You didn't sleep?" He shook his head. "Didn't plan to." "Were you expecting someone?" "I never expect anyone. That way I'm never disappointed." She blinked, then looked away. The baby shifted in her arms, fussed, and Clara began rocking gently, her voice low and trembling as she whispered a melody with no words. Silas stood, stretched, and winced at the pop in his spine. He went to the window and stared out through the mist-slick glass. The forest beyond swayed in slow motion, shadows tangled between trunks like cobwebs stretched too thin. He turned back. "We can't stay here long." "I figured," Clara said. "There's a town, Red Bluff, 3 days south. Could maybe find work, shelter, someone willing to help." She laughed once, a short, bitter sound. "No one helps for free." "I didn't say it'd be free," Silas replied. "Just that it's somewhere better than here." She didn't answer, just kept rocking the child. Silas stepped outside to check on Milo. The horse stood tethered, soaked and miserable but unhurt. He patted its neck, checked its hooves, then scanned the surrounding woods again. The boot print was gone, washed away by the night's rain, but the feeling remained. Eyes. Watching. Waiting. Back inside, Clara had managed to stand. She looked worse than the night before, pale, hollowed, like her soul was working overtime to keep her body moving. "You're not healed," Silas said. "I won't be," she replied. "Not all the way." "Then you'll need help." She bristled. "I'm not weak." "I didn't say you were. But strong people drown, too, if they carry too much." Her eyes softened at that. Just a flicker. Silas moved to the stool bag, pulling out a handful of trail rations and dried berries. He handed her some without ceremony. She accepted them, without thanks. "Your husband," he said after a moment. "He ever hit you?" She froze. "No," she said quietly. "But he let them scare me. He didn't protect us. Thought he could gamble our way free." Silas nodded once. "I've seen men like that. They don't change." Clara's gaze dropped to Eli. He was born into fear. Silas sat across from her, careful to keep his movements unthreatening. He was born into fire, but his still breathing. She said nothing. Outside, the rain stopped completely, leaving the world in a stillness that felt uneasy. Silas packed what little they had, blankets, food, a dented compass, and one box of bullets. Clara helped when she could, though she moved stiffly, pain visible in the tight lines around her mouth. By mid-morning, they were on the move. Milo carried them both again, Clara clutching Eli to her chest, wrapped in layers to shield against the cold. The trail south wound through thick woods and over shallow creeks turned slick with mud. Progress was slow. Around noon, they stopped in a grove of pines to rest. Silas scouted ahead while Clara fed the baby. He didn't go far, just enough to check for prints, broken branches, anything out of place. He found it 5 minutes in, an old campfire. Cold. Abandoned. But the ashes were dry. Rain hadn't touched them. Someone had been ahead of them. Recently. He returned silently. Didn't tell Clara right away. She noticed anyway. "You saw something," she said. Silas didn't lie. "Campfire. Not more than a few hours old. Could be hunters." "Or not," she murmured. They rode faster after that. By evening, the trail began to narrow through a winding canyon of red stone. Shadows clung to the walls like ghosts, and sound didn't carry well. Silas's nerves were tight, senses tuned to the weight of silence around them. Then came the echo. A stone falling. Soft. Then louder. Deliberate. Silas stopped Milo. Held up a hand. "Stay behind me." Clara tightened her hold on the child. From around the bend came 3 riders. Slow. Unhurried. The kind of slow that meant confidence or cruelty. Their clothes were worn, dust-caked. Their eyes, when they pulled close, were harder than boot nails. "Well now," the lead rider said, grinning. "Ain't this something?" He had a long scar down one cheek and a rifle slung across his back. The others flanked him like wolves, silent and watchful. "We don't want trouble," Silas said. "Trouble don't care what you want," the man replied. His eyes flicked to Clara. "You folks got something belongs to a man named Lang." Clara flinched. The man saw it. Silas didn't move. "Lang's dead." "That so?" The rider tilted his head. "Funny. We're here to collect what he owed. He's got nothing left. He's got a wife. And a baby." He looked directly at Clara. "And those fetch a price, where we're going." Silas's hand hovered over his holster. "This ain't gonna go your way." The man's grin widened. "You sure you want to find out?" A pause. Then Clara did something unexpected. She slid down off the horse, one arm still wrapped around Eli, and stood between Silas and the men. "He's got nothing," she said. "You hear me? My husband left me with nothing but a grave and a child who cries himself hoarse." The men stared at her. Silas didn't breathe. "I'm done running," she said. Silas moved before the leader could answer. His revolver was up, aimed, steady. 3 seconds, he said. "Then I start counting bodies." The grin vanished. The lead rider didn't draw. He wasn't stupid. But his eyes burned. "Fine," he said. "You're dead men. Both of you. Ain't no trail south that we ain't watching." They backed off, slowly, turning their horses. Silas didn't lower his gun until they were gone, the echo of hooves fading into the rocks. Clara didn't move. Just stood there, staring at nothing. "You all right?" he asked. "I should be," she said. "But I'm not." Silas nodded. "You will be." That night, they didn't make camp. They pushed hard, moving by moonlight until Clara nearly collapsed in the saddle. Only then did Silas allow them to stop, setting up in a narrow gully half hidden by underbrush. Clara sat with Eli wrapped close to her chest. Her hands trembled. "Why'd you stand up like that?" Silas asked. She looked at him. "Because I'm tired of men deciding what happens to me. You could have been killed. I've already been dying a little every day." Silas didn't reply. He stoked the fire, then walked to the edge of their camp and listened. No sounds of pursuit, just the wind through dry leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. He returned to find Clara staring into the fire. "I think I hated him," she said suddenly. "Your husband?" She nodded. "Not always. But near the end. He made promises he couldn't keep. Sold futures that weren't his to sell. Love blinds people. I wasn't blind. Just tired of being alone." Silas sat beside her. "You're not alone now." She looked at him, eyes searching. "Why are you helping us?" He stared into the flames for a long time before answering. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. And I didn't listen. Cost me everything." "What happened?" He took a breath. "I had a wife. A daughter. After the war, I came back a different man. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't talk. Drank too much. I left one night in a rage. Came back the next morning to ashes." Clara's voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry." Silas shook his head. "Wasn't asking for pity. Just wanted you to know, I ain't some wandering hero. I've done things I don't talk about. But I can't walk past someone drowning again." She nodded slowly. "Neither can I." They didn't say more. That night, they took turns keeping watch. When Silas's shift came, he stared up at the stars and wondered how many nights like this the world could hold. The stars looked the same, but nothing else did. And somewhere in the dark, not too far off, came the sound of a wolf's howl. Except this time, it sounded human. Morning cracked open like a rifle shot. The sun rose in ribbons through pine and stone, casting slants of gold on the forest floor, as birds sang warily in the canopy. Silas was already saddling Milo, boots coated in dew, jaw tight. Clara stood knee-by, bouncing Eli gently, her shawl pulled tight against the morning bite. Neither spoke much. After the encounter in the canyon, silence had taken on weight. Heavy, mutual, necessary. Clara's gaze drifted behind them every few moments, her instincts tuned to pursuit. "They'll be back," she finally said. Silas didn't glance up. "I know. They'll bring more. They always do." She stepped closer. "We need to go off the trail. Somewhere they won't follow." "There's a pass north," Silas said. "Steep and tight. Not many know it. Hard riding, but it'll buy us a day. Maybe more. Do we have that much time?" "No." He looked at her then, eyes steady. She was pale again, less from pain, more from fear held too long, but something had changed. The tremble in her voice was gone. The Clara that had stood between him and the gunman in the canyon had stayed with her. She was still frightened, but she wasn't broken. They rode hard. The pass, when they reached it, was a slit through the mountainside, a scar more than a road, laced with fallen branches and narrow, crumbling ledges. Milo braved it without complaint, muscles straining as he picked through stone and brush. The air was colder up here, sharp, less forgiving. They didn't speak for miles. Only when the sun tilted low behind them did Clara finally say, "Why Red Bluff?" Silas considered. "I was stationed near there once. During the war. There's a chapel on the edge of town. The preacher's a good man. Quiet. Doesn't ask questions he doesn't want the answers to." "And you trust him?" "I trust who he used to be. That's enough." She nodded. "I don't trust many people." "Neither do I." They kept moving. Late afternoon brought them to a creek cutting through the rocks. Clear water, cold and fast. Silas dismounted, checked the horse's hooves again, then crouched beside the water to drink. Clara knelt across from him, dipping a cloth to press against Eli's head. The baby was fussing again, hot-cheeked and restless. Clara's expression hardened. "His burning up. Could be fever," Silas muttered. "I need herbs. Boiled willow bark. Something. I used to know this stuff." Silas stood, scanning the area. "Stay here. I'll check the bend ahead." "Be careful," she said softly. He nodded and slipped into the trees. The woods thickened with distance. The further he walked, the more silence folded around him. Birds quieted, wind faded, and even the sound of the creek vanished behind him. His boots found the faint outline of a trail, half consumed by moss and thyme. There, nestled under a copse of cedar, he found what he needed: bark from a downed willow, still pliable, and sprigs of sage trailing up a hollow stump. He bent to collect it, and froze. Footprints. Fresh. Not his. They led to the edge of the bluff, then vanished into nothing. A lookout spot. Someone had been watching. He straightened slowly, fingers tightening around the herbs. No sound came from behind, but the hairs on his neck rose. Then a voice. "You travel loud for someone trying not to be followed." Silas turned. The man stood half in shadow, half in light. Tall, broad across the chest. His hair hung long in dark cords, wind-matted and streaked with gray. His eyes were obsidian and still, reflecting nothing. He wore deerskin stitched with bone and feathers, his boots silent against the earth. Across his back, a carved longbow. At his side, a knife longer than most men's forearms. Silas didn't reach for his gun. "I was hoping to lose them," he said calmly. "You didn't." The man stepped closer. 3 men passed here 2 hours ago. One carried a knife meant for gutting, not skinning. Another spat every few words. The last wore blood on his belt. "They hunt you." "I figured." The man glanced at the herbs in Silas's hand. "Someone sick. A baby. Fever." The stranger paused, then said, "Your horse limps slightly. You ride heavy. She is weak. The child needs warmth. You'll not make Red Bluff before they catch you." Silas nodded once. "You sound sure." "I am." They studied one another in the quiet. Finally, Silas spoke. "You gonna help, or just narrate the odds?" The stranger blinked once. then turned and started walking. "Come." Silas followed without a word. They returned to the creek where Clara waited, crouched near Milo. Her eyes flicked up at the sound of footfalls, and narrowed when she saw the man at Silas's side. "Who's this?" "Name's Wexa," the man said. "Means born during harvest. But I was born during winter." The name stuck anyway. Clara held Eli tighter. "Why is he here?" "He knows the land, and he's not with them," Silas said. Wexa knelt beside her, inspecting the baby with a surgeon's focus. He didn't touch, just watched, smelled the child's breath, listened. "Fever will break by nightfall, but he must stay dry." "I can do that," Clara said. "Your skin is cold. You haven't eaten." Clara bristled. "We've had no time." "You'll make time, or the baby will bury you." Silas stepped in. "We'll move again by dusk. If you know a faster trail, show it." Wexa nodded. "I do." As the sun dipped low, they followed him into a part of the forest that didn't look like forest anymore. Roots curled up like claws, trees leaned in like they were listening. The light thinned to blue and gray. It was quiet as a tomb. "You live out here?" Clara asked. "I live where men do not." "Why?" "Because where men gather, poison follows." She fell silent after that. By dark, they came to a low rise covered in brush. Beneath it, hidden from view, was a hollow packed with leaves and dry moss, Wexa's shelter. No fire, no scent, just concealment. "This is where you sleep?" Clara asked, surprised. "This is where I wait," Wexa answered. That night, they ate dried meat and boiled herbs in silence. Eli's fever began to subside. Clara sat with her back to a tree, the baby curled against her chest, eyes closed but alert. Silas and Wexa sat a short distance away. "You used to fight?" Silas asked. Wexa nodded. "Not for flags. For my people." "Lose many?" "All of them." Silas said nothing. Wexa looked at him. "You carry guilt like a wound. I can smell it." "I earned it." "No one earns ghosts." They lapsed into quiet. Then Wexa said, "They'll come at dawn." "You sure?" "I'm never unsure." "Then we stand." "You can't kill them all," Wexa said plainly. "No," Silas replied. "But I'll start with the one that smiled." Before the first pale blue of morning touched the trees, the riders came. 3 again, but faster now. Less cautious. The wind carried the scuff of hooves, the jangle of bridles. Wexa was already crouched beside the trail, bow drawn, eyes narrow. Silas knelt behind a fallen log, rifle aimed. Clara stayed back with Eli, hidden beneath the brush in the hollow. She didn't cry, didn't speak. She simply cradled her child and waited. The first rider crested the rise, and dropped with a soundless thud. Wexa's arrow lodged deep in his neck. The second cursed and drew his pistol. Too slow. Silas fired once. The shot cracked like thunder. The man toppled sideways, his horse shrieking as it bolted. The third rider reined in hard, spun, tried to flee. Wexa's second arrow struck the horse's flank. The beast collapsed mid-gallop, pinning the man underneath. Silas rose, rifle trained, and moved slowly. The man groaned, tried to reach his gun. Silas kicked it away and crouched beside him. It was the one who'd smiled. "Where's the rest?" Silas asked. The man spit blood. "We were the rest." "Lang send you." "Lang's dead." Silas nodded once, then stood. "So are you." The man's eyes widened, but not from fear, from defiance. "Won't change nothing," he rasped. "There'll always be men like me." "Then I'll keep killing them," Silas said. He didn't pull the trigger. Wexa did. By the time the sun burned through the mist, the bodies were buried. No crosses, no markers, just soil and silence. Silas washed his hands in the creek. Clara came beside him, Eli sleeping in her arms. She looked at the water, then at him. "I thought it would feel like a victory," she said. "But it doesn't." "Doesn't need to," he replied. "Do you think it's over?" Silas stared at the reflection of the sky. "No, but it's quieter now." She looked at Wexa, who stood at the tree line, still and watchful. "Why did he help us?" Because he knows the cost of silence. She nodded slowly. They broke camp with no ceremony. Clara mounted behind Silas again, Eli between them. Wexa led them further west, into country untouched by map or law. As they rode, he spoke little, but every step forward felt lighter. Even Milo seemed to carry less weight. At one point, Clara leaned forward and whispered into Silas's shoulder. "What now?" Silas didn't answer right away. Then finally, "Now, we keep going. And we don't look back." The wind changed before the town came into view. It carried a different weight now, less wild pine, more scorched earth and coal smoke. The sky was wider here, but something in it hung heavy, as if it too remembered things better left buried. Silas reined Milo to a stop at the ridgeline. Clara leaned forward, her arms around Eli, and followed his gaze. Red Bluff. It wasn't much, just a string of crooked buildings clinging to a dirt road, all bowed under years of dust and ash. Smoke curled from a chimney or two, but otherwise the place looked like it was holding its breath. Silent. Suspicious. Waiting. Clara's voice came soft against his ear. "This is your safe place." "Closest thing I know." Wexa stood beside them, expression unreadable. He'd traveled this far with them, but Silas knew this was where he would vanish again, like fog off a morning lake. He didn't belong in towns. Clara turned to him. "You won't come with us." Wexa shook his head. "They don't want me there. I don't want them." "You saved my child," she said. "And my life." Wexa tilted his head slightly. "You saved your own. I was just a mirror." Silas extended a hand. Wexa hesitated, then took it. "You ever need me," Silas said, "you know where to find me." "I do," Wexa said. Then, without a backward glance, he slipped into the trees and was gone. They rode into town at midday. Eyes followed them behind cracked shutters and warped door frames. Silas didn't expect a welcome. He didn't want one. But the longer they stayed in the open, the more exposed they were. Red Bluff hadn't been safe during the war. It wouldn't be safe now. They stopped in front of a squat stone building near the chapel. The wooden sign above the door read, "Reverend Elihu Marston." Clara dismounted stiffly, wincing. Her body had endured more than most soldiers, but she was still on her feet, still holding her baby. Silas helped her up the steps. The door opened before they knocked. Reverend Marston was older than Silas remembered, with white hair swept back and a beard like prairie frost. His eyes, though, were just as sharp, piercing, but not unkind. "I heard the shooting east of here," he said simply. "Figured it might be you." Silas nodded. "Need a place for her. And the boy." Marston looked at Clara, then the child in her arms. Something shifted behind his gaze. He stepped aside. "Come in." Inside, it was warm, too warm. A fire crackled low in the hearth, and the air smelled of pine tar and old leather. Clara sank into a wooden chair with a sigh that sounded like surrender. Silas stood nearby, scanning the room out of habit. Marston poured water into a basin and handed Clara a clean cloth. "Name?" "Clara," she said. "This is Eli." Marston nodded, setting down a loaf of bread and a jar of preserves. "You'll be safe here. For a time." Clara met his eyes. "We've run out of time before." "Then rest while you can." Silas stood by the window. The street beyond looked unchanged, but he felt it, something crawling at the edges. A wrongness that clung. "I saw smoke near the ridge," Marston said. "We took care of it." "Bodies." "Buried." "Good." That night, Clara slept on a cot near the hearth, Eli tucked beneath her arm. Silas took the chair by the door, rifle close, boots still on. But sleep didn't come easy. Too many ghosts whispered in the silence. He watched the fire burn low. In the morning, Marston approached him while Clara and the baby still slept. "There's word from south," he said. "A company of land speculators. Former soldiers. They are moving north, fast. Looking to run out homesteaders, squatters, and anyone who can't pay taxes that don't exist." Silas didn't blink. "Lang." "Dead, I heard. But his kind doesn't die easy. There'll be more like him." "Then we keep moving." Marston's face was carved from years of mercy hardened by necessity. There's a farmstead 3 miles out. Burned 2 days ago. Widow and 2 sons live there. What happened? They didn't leave fast enough. Silas looked toward the sleeping child. His fingers tightened around the rifle strap. Clara's not leaving alone. Marston gave a slow nod. I didn't think you would. They spent the next day in quiet preparation. Clara helped cook, her hands finding rhythm again. She spoke more now, small stories, nothing deep, but every word was part of rebuilding something inside her. She asked Marston for parchment and began writing a letter. To who? She didn't say. That night, the wind changed again. Silas heard the horses before he saw them, boots drumming against dirt, low voices, shadows moving through the dark like a storm tide. He stepped out onto the porch. 6 men, all armed. One wore a Confederate officer's coat, frayed at the sleeves. Another chewed tobacco with a grin too wide. They didn't bother hiding their weapons. You Silas Creed, the one in front called. We're looking for a woman. Got a baby. Supposed to be riding with a half-breed and a gun hand gone soft. Silas didn't move. Ain't no one like that, eh? Town's not that big. You boys ride with Lang. Lang's dead. So I've heard. The man spat. But his cause ain't. Silas's jaw tightened. What's the cause now? Killing mothers. Stealing land that ain't yours. Survival, the man said with a shrug. Same as yours. Clara stepped onto the porch. Quiet. Calm. Eli was wrapped against her chest, sleeping. Her face was pale, but her eyes were stone. I ain't running anymore, she said. The man laughed. You think standing on a porch makes you brave? I stood between a child and 3 rifles. You're just number 4. The man reached for his pistol. He never cleared leather. Silas's shot rang out like a bell in a canyon. The man dropped without a word, dust blooming beneath him. The others scattered, firing wildly, but Marston was already on the roof, shotgun in hand. His blast took another rider down before the rest fled into the dark. Silence returned in pieces. Marston climbed down slowly, breathing hard. Well, he said, guess that's one sermon I won't get to give. Clara sat down on the porch steps, shaking. Not from fear, from relief, from release. Eli stirred but didn't cry. Silas crouched beside her. You all right? I think, she said, voice cracking, I might be. That night, they burned the bodies. No names. No ceremony. Just fire and wind and silence. Silas watched the flames devour the past, every cruel hand, every blood-soaked oath. Clara stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes full of something deeper than pain. The next morning, she handed him a folded letter. What's this? He asked. For Eli. When he's old enough. If I don't make it. You're not dying. No, she said. But I'm not the same woman who cried in that cabin, either. Silas looked at the letter, then back at her. You think he'll want to know all this? I hope he'll never need to. But if the world turns dark again, he should know there was once a light. Even for a moment. Silas tucked the letter into his coat. Later that afternoon, they packed. Marston gave them supplies, dried meat, bandages, a worn map with trails circled in red. Clara hugged him without a word. Eli clutched the old preacher's collar like he didn't want to let go. You take care of that boy, Marston said. Clara smiled. He's the one taking care of me. Silas mounted up, Clara behind him. They rode out as the sun dipped low behind them. Red Bluff shrank to a smudge in the distance. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was theirs. You ever think about where this ends? Clara asked quietly. All the time, Silas replied. And I stopped looking for endings. I just ride till the trail runs out. She leaned her head against his back. Then I'll ride with you. For a long time, they said nothing. Then, in the hush between trees, Eli giggled, soft and high like birdsong. Clara laughed through tears. Silas smiled, the road stretching wide before them, as if the earth itself had decided, for once, to be kind. Behind them, only ashes remained. But ahead, just ahead, there was mercy.